Hi, everybody. So one thing I realized coming over on the plane was like, hey, this is the country that's supposed to be really, really happy. So I'm happy to see you all, and I hope you're all happy to see me as well. And like, let's have a fun day today. Since we are a little bit running late, so we'll get started really quickly here. So what I'm going to talk about is, you know, what are we doing in Kubernetes itself as a to make sure that releases are on time, things are happening, and there is always something for everybody that is involved, and all of you are here, right? That's a testament to the fact that the community is doing its job properly. So it, you know, just like any other community, it consists of the people, the processes, and the code. There is no CEO. There is, you can look at the org chart, so to say, of the different people that are working in the community. Um, we try to have no single point of failure, right? So that it's easy, predictable, and so on. So how do we do this? This is how. So I'm going to skip over the slide. I'm just to mention I'm part of the SIG architecture. I'm the co-chair there, um, and I'll talk a little bit more about it as the slides progress. So let's start with the people, right? There's thousands of strangers across hundreds of companies. How are we organizing ourselves? Essentially, the way it works is right at the top in Kubernetes, we have the steering committee. The steering committee is the one that ends up talking to CNCF for the needs of the project. And under the steering committee, we have the rest of the special interest groups. There's 24 of them. And we also have active working groups. Active working groups are set up to essentially work on a specific problem, that might be cross-cutting, or that might require a lot of attention, and then they end up disbanding themselves. We also have 3 committees. We have the Code of Conduct Committee, we have the Security Response Committee, and of course the Steering Committee. And we believe in elections, and we believe in like making sure that there is continuity as well. So this is kind of like the overall structure. Doesn't mean that we started this way right at the beginning, right? Like, so right at the beginning in Kubernetes, there was no steering committee either, right? So we started off with a bootstrap committee, and then we essentially, built it from that point onward. When somebody has a good idea for a SIG, essentially we ask them to write a charter, right? Like, what do you want to be responsible for? What is the code involved, and what is the area that you're going to cover, and things like that. And that gets approved by the steering committee, and then that's how we get to do our work. SIG architecture, like I promised, maintains a conformance program, right? So it's very easy for open source projects to get forked, and it's very easy for people to do whatever they want with the code, especially with the Apache license. But then what happens then, right? Like, everybody gets a different experience when they touch Kubernetes, and they won't even realize that, hey, but this Kubernetes is different from that Kubernetes, right? Like, so how do we make sure that that doesn't happen? We essentially have a conformance program. The conformance program tests the API for Kubernetes, and that is one way and when people go through the conformance program, essentially they get to call themselves Kubernetes, right? Like, if you take AKS or GKE or EKS, all of them have Kubernetes in the name, and that's how they market themselves to their customers, right? So, and how do they get that trademark? That they get it from us because of the conformance program. And we also have, we own the Kubernetes enhancement process. And the Kubernetes enhancement process is basically a structured way to think about things, right? You just don't generate a PR and say, hey, merge this and this is a new feature. Because of various reasons, right? It takes a long time to merge something, especially because we want to make sure that we don't break existing workloads and existing use cases and scenarios. So we have a gradual process of introducing new changes across the whole code base, and we have to persist across people and across teams. So that is why we have a structured process to write things down, and that is the KEP process. Usually we work by lazy consensus. Most of the code that we work on a day-to-day basis is like, okay, there's a bunch of people. There's an approver. There is a person who can do the LGTM to the code base, and they end up working on things and landing things. And the CI, so it's very easy. If you just look at any PR in Kubernetes repository, you will know what there are bots that guide you through the process and get you to like, hey, go talk to these people and assign these people to get your work done. We also have an owners file, which is different from the code owners that is in GitHub. So that is another mechanism by which we say, hey, here are the SIGs, here are the approvers for the SIG, here are the approvers for the reviewers for the specific SIG or for a specific directory, and so on. KEP, we talked a little bit about before. So one important other thing in the KEP is we don't just talk about the feature itself or like what it does, but we also talk about like, is it ready for production? Does it have enough metrics? Does it have enough observability? Does it have can you back out the change? Can you go back to the previous version? What does it look like and things like that. Then in terms of getting into the project itself, so let me ask you this question here. How many of you have had the chance to create an issue or a PR in Kubernetes, any of the repositories? So I have a bunch of people here. So these are the people you need to talk to. Don't talk to me. Talk to these people because they have done it before. Essentially, you start off as a GitHub community. Anybody on GitHub is welcome to create an issue on PR with us. But then once you do a few of these, we say, hey, we would like to invite you to become a GitHub org member. Can you find a couple of sponsors from 2 different companies? And then you become an org member. And then once you become an org member, then some of the things get easier. Like, when you open up a PR, then it essentially runs the CI/CD jobs without asking anybody for permission, for example, right? So there is some nice things that you get as an org member. It's a badge that shows up in your GitHub profile too. So you can say, hey, I'm a GitHub org member. So and then once you do a little bit of work in a specific directory, subtree, or in a specific SIG, then you become a reviewer of the appropriate code, and then once you have some of those under your belt and work on a KEP or 2, then you become an approver and tech lead, and then you become a chair for the SIG, and so on. So essentially why I'm saying this is there is a ladder, right? So how we are going through the ladder, and like you can mark yourself as like how far did you get and like how far you can go, right? And this is like literally how everybody gets involved in the project, right? And the ultimate is like having a seat on the steering committee, but that's a whole different set of headaches that you get when you're on the steering committee. Believe me, you don't want to do that unless you have you're very worried about the community as such. We also have other things too, right? We have localization stuff. Just 2 people can bootstrap a whole new language for documentation and things like that. We have release cycles, and we also have a contributor ladder for people who are involved in the release, and we have mentoring channels as well. Why am I saying all this? Is you're not alone, right? When you get into the community, there is support structure in there. Most of the time it works well. Sometimes it doesn't. There is enough of us to like help you get through the system and get you engaged and so on, right? We do elections for the steering committee, and whenever there is a SIG chair or a tech lead and things like that, we do elections for that as well, depending on like how many people are interested in becoming the tech lead or the SIG chair. This is the most important point. A lot of us have moved through different companies, working on different things in Kubernetes, and we always like wear our SIG hat, right? So we represent the community, we represent the people. Yes, we work for an employer, we do the work that is required for the employer too, but mostly when you go and end up in talking in the community is like, hey, what can we do together? We wear our agenda from our employer on our sleeve, but that's not the primary motivation. We want to make sure that we consider all the use cases, and we consider all the potential scenarios, and we consider all the things that need to be done in Kubernetes to support everybody, not just one specific vendor or one specific scenario, right? That is one of the important things that we have. We work on Slack, mailing lists. There is even discussions on Reddit and YouTube, and Google Docs is one of our main avenues of collaboration. Before we end up writing things in YAML for the KEP, we end up doing a Google Doc and doing the collaboration there, and then it goes into a PR, and that's how we do our work as well. So if you want to follow along what is happening in the community week over week, LKWD is a really good resource for that. In terms of processes, do you sense the theme here? There is layers and layers of things that go on, right? Beyond one person actually, saying, okay, there is no BDFL, there is no benevolent dictator for life, right? So there is a bunch of people that are working together, and there is a set of things that they are working on, and there are processes. So we have a metronome for the releases, right? So earlier we used to do 4 releases a year. We brought it down to 3 to make it easier. So we have 3 stable releases at any given point in time. We have around 15 weeks per cycle, and we also have a monthly cadence for all the patch releases and so on. So we crank out code, on a calendar basis, right? We don't, if the feature is not ready, we ship the release without the feature. And then when the feature gets ready, then it gets switched on or get pushed into the new release. A release team is one of the easiest way to get involved, right? You get a structured way of understanding, hey, how do I look at all the CA jobs that are responsible for giving me a green flag to see if, the release is healthy, if the code is healthy or not. Is the documentation done? Are all the KEPs ready? Do they have approval? Is the code ready? And things like that. So we have run books for all of these too, right? Like every cycle, we have a new set of people that take over the release part, and they augment the existing run book. So over a period of time, it becomes like self-fulfilling prophecy, right? And every time there is some new stuff or the other, there is a new Golang release, or like there is something happening in the ecosystem, something happening in the dependency, and so on. So this is somewhat of we move fast, but we also move slow, right? Move slow means we have millions of users across the whole world, right? So we have to go slow for them. We can't break anyone, right? So it is really hard to do that backward compatibilities and making sure that the release notes are correct and things like that. But also we have to move fast because things are changing in the industry so fast, right? The AI takeover has it took only a few years to get to the point where everybody has to do something to make sure that AI related workloads are working well in Kubernetes, for example, right? So we have to move fast too. Everybody has deliverables, right? You take anybody who's working on Kubernetes, they have something or the other they want to provide for their customers, and they have some use case scenarios that they want to fold in. So you need to move fast from that point of view, but also you have to move slow because you can't break people. So we try to be round trip safe. We make sure that the features are graduating from alpha to beta to GA, and essentially that is how we kind of balance the speed and things like that. So just to give you an example, right? There are people in this room who have worked with us. The Intel team can take a bow here, on introducing a new feature called the DRA, which is really important for deploying AI workloads. So the one way to also think about it is if you look at the bottom, you have the CRI, CSI, CNI, and Gateway API. Those are all standards that we ended up working with everybody to make sure that They can all have plug points like storage drivers, CSI, network drivers end up doing the CNI stuff. And we have different people doing CRIs as well. So in terms of code, 2 minutes left. Okay. So code organization is one of my special things. Like I work a lot on making sure that the supply chain is good and the dependencies that we land on are sustainable over time. And how do we do the testing? We have Proud, Tide, TestGrid, Boscos. So we have tons of things. We have community owned infrastructure. We literally, people use the infrastructure like just the kubelet and API server and a kube ADM and things like that, 115 GB per minute, right? So that's massive. And we have some design principles. So when nothing is written down, how do we make decisions? We have some design principles as part of the SIG architecture. So avoid bottlenecks, distribute responsibilities are like some of them. But one important thing also is like we should outlast any single contributor, any single company, any single employer, right? So that's important to us. And as part of the Kubernetes community, we also have values. Like when we have to make a decision, hey, what is our policy around XYZ is going to look like? Then we look to our values and say, hey, we write down the policy that we want, and then we figure out like, is it, does our values support it, or the other way around, right? So we've been diligently working. You've seen the numbers that I put out, and the point is the engine runs forever. The things to take home is any project that you all are working on. I'm sure you're all working on open source projects, right? Like, it doesn't mean that you need all the things that is there in Kubernetes, right? What you can do, you can use it as a toolbox. You pick the things that you want to pick, and you take the things that you want to take, and use it as a template, right? Not every project needs to be Kubernetes scale or needs to be in Kubernetes scale. And the other thing also I want to tell you is how can you help? Be part of it, right? I showed you how all the different things are put together. You can also help, and we would really welcome you to come and join the community and pass it on forward. I hope that helps to motivate you all to do a little bit more in the community as well. And thanks a lot for inviting me here.